Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Eli, who's joining middle of my intro, 10th Man, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Morning, morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Everyone in the Discord happy, all settled, ready for housekeeping?
Hello, hello, hello. Yes.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Excellent
Howdy
stuff.
ho, Winslows.
Say a quick hello to Arwin. Hello, Arwin.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
Nope. Crickets.
Bottom-up concealment. It's diffraction, Nathan.
That's not Earth curve.
Well, they like to calculate as if it were.
They
Sorry,
can calculate it.
sorry for all
Right.
these people who are out there currently talking about diffraction and talking about Rayleigh criterion and talking about angles. None of that's in Earth curve maths. It was what we used as a rebuttal to the original Isle of Man discussion about 3.5, 4 years ago. Yeah, you haven't got any perspective in your begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve maths fundies. Globe maths doesn't have perspective. The feet and inches value that's subscribed to a target does not change with distance. Angular sizes, that's apparent size, the size it appears, does change with distance. And it's given with an angular size. It gets smaller when it gets further away. Feet and inches don't do that, and that's what you use in Earth curve maths. So for all of their detailing of what is essentially our argument about perspective, excluded from Earth curve maths, doesn't help them, it hinders them. They're idiots. They don't realise that their perspective hijacking maths doesn't include the very thing they're detailing to us.
Right, they need to misunderstand optics on purpose in order to reify their virtual curvature.
Yeah, and while they're doing it on a flat surface. Where else are they going to get an angle from, as detailed in the pre-show when going through the sextant? If you're going to acquire an angle to something and claim that you're measuring its angular size only to cherry pick out some feet and inches measurements and distances and drop values from a calculator that does not include them, if you're going to do that, yeah, Owen, you've got to actually account for perspective in your maths. That's all that matters. Not the fact that they've done it, because they're going to do it on a flat plane and then ignore it in the maths. So they need a flat plane to claim that they're dealing with angles. Now, at first, they claimed, oh, it's because that's how you do it, and now we're going to burn it as a flat earth straw man. It's like, no, we've got very detailed explanations. Check out Life is Short in terms of how things in the distance perceive to get smaller or are perceived to get smaller. Well, that's not just a case of calculating angular size. There's many, many factors that go into it. Lists and lists of stuff that you guys on the globe side detailed with a column called R for globe and a column with all sorts of other refractive effects, details of obstructions, weather conditions, not to mention angular resolution limits. All of these effects of perspective, foreshortening, you name it. There's all sorts of stuff you've got to take into account. But just to get the angle, for you to then later burn as a flat earth straw man, you're going to be doing that on a flat surface, and it's the only way you can do it, which is why you've got to burn it as a flat earth straw man. How else are you going to get the angle off a curve? You can't. It's nonsense, but things still work in reality, don't we? We can still measure angular sizes of things without any difficulty at all, because we are actually on a flat plane.
Nathan, when you conceived of your YouTube channel, you had options of any topic to make your YouTube channel about, but you chose this topic. Now, obviously, you chose it because you saw that it would be a very vigorous conversation between the two sides. And yet the one side that's supposed to be right, it can never give us a measurement. It's always a calculation. It only exists in the maths. It's pretty interesting that 99.9% of the Western world is just only in the maths.
Well, there's an indication of curvature. That's what a pilot said on Japan to show. There's indications of curvature.
He was
First
talking
time I
about
heard that.
he was talking about his windshield that was slightly bent.
Yeah, when they talk about indications of curvature from altitude, for example, if you looked outside of Richard Branson's recent high-altitude flight, the assertion that what you're seeing at the horizon is Earth curve has been debunked by the Black Swan. Not to mention the fact that they normally show it through a fisheye lens and it can go concave at any moment if they tilt the angle wrong. But nevertheless, that's a geometric physical sphere edge for a horizon that they're claiming they can see at altitude. The horizon is an Earth curve. It's the end of that argument. Meanwhile, we only have one horizon. The horizon in your begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator is physical and geometric. You know, it's claimed to block things, boats and buildings, feet and inches that don't change with distance. Being blocked by physical Earth curve edges at the horizon? Yeah, that's your physical horizon that we've debunked with the Black Swan. So saying I can get up high and see the horizon being Earth curve again, it's like, yeah, lest we forget that that's not a physical sphere edge anymore. So what are you seeing from altitude? You mean you can see the horizon? That's not Earth curve. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Don't be shy in Discord. Or be as shy as you like. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, no 15-degree movement of the Earth whatsoever. We are motionless. And still, it's so obvious. Just go stand and look around you. You ain't moving. Now, the sky and the things in the sky appear to be moving for sure. But that doesn't mean you're moving, because if you're moving, you would know. You know how you would know? It's called the Coriolis effect. Earth-based, that is.
Interesting.
Let's get up in a helicopter.
They claim it. They claim that's what happens. They claim things drift away at 15 degrees an hour because we turn beneath them. Of course, we don't see that.
Well,
Good morning, guys.
yeah.
Hey, Chocolate.
Hey, good morning, John. Yeah, so why not prove it? Why not prove that claim? Let's get up in a helicopter, hover over one place, and wait for the next city or town to come under us. If the Earth is turning, that is exactly what's got to happen.
Yeah, that doesn't happen, though, because Earth's not turning. We're stationary.
Oh, my goodness. But when I look up, the stars are moving. So maybe they're just moving.
Yeah, but we're not turning beneath them because we'd notice Coriolis effect. We'd see things drifting away, like footballs when kicked from a ground as they leave the non-inertial claim to be spinning reference frame of a turning Earth. Neil deGrasse Tyson would assert, in line with the heliocentric rhetoric, that the ball appears to drift through the goal, curve through the goal, because Earth turned beneath it. Likewise, it's claimed that snipers' bullets will curve because when they leave the barrel of the gun, the Earth will continue to turn beneath them, causing you to appear to have a curved path of the bullet. And you'll have to track your target because it's claimed Earth's turning beneath the bullet. However, if Earth was turning beneath bullets and footballs, it would also be turning beneath helicopters, drones, hot air balloons, aeroplanes, and you if you jumped up and down. And you'd notice. We don't. We're not drifting. Nothing's drifting. Earth's
We
not
need to
turning.
set up this. Sorry, Nathan. We need to set up this debate though, like between like there's this hierarchy now, right? Like globers and anti-flat earthers, right? So we need to have this debate between the globers and the anti-flat earthers, like the ones that claim that we have two reference frames, like Mr. Smoking the Grass Tyson sits at his, on his couch and makes quick calculations as to how Earth is supposed to be rotating underneath football. But then you got the other guy, like, I don't know, No Psy Man Dan, who claims that our reference frames are ruined. Well, whose reference frames? Neil deGrasse Tyson's, the ones he just claimed. But did you ruin his reference frames or what? They need to have a debate like together, work that out before they can come even here and approach us with this crap.
I wholeheartedly agree. There should be some distinction. So at the moment, you've got two camps. Half of the camp thinks that Bob Nodell has proved that Earth turned beneath the fixed spinning frame of a fibre optic gyroscope. That is a claim that Earth turned beneath it to cause drift. Now, the only way you can observe this drift is if you are attached to the spinning reference frame. Like if you are on a roundabout and you are spinning on the roundabout, you, spinning on a roundabout, can observe things seem to drift. Not because they actually drift, it's because you're turning beneath them. So in order to have this effect, you must be attached and turning beneath things that aren't attached. That's the only way to have this effect. So for it to be Coriolis, as asserted by Neil deGrasse Tyson, you must be observing a ball seem to curve through a goal because you're turning beneath the ball. So the effect is only going to be observable from the ground and is only going to be observable if and only if we are turning beneath things. So if we have Coriolis effect, we must observe us turning beneath hot air balloons at 15 degrees an hour. And we don't. So I'd like the anti-flat earthers who say, we wouldn't expect to see drift, it conserves momentum, pissing in the face of the assertion Neil deGrasse Tyson makes, that as we turn beneath things, we observe them seem to drift, because they aren't attached and we are to a spinning reference frame. Conservation of my ass. It's claimed we have drift. Now, anti-flat earthers, like the bastards, George and Ruhif and various other wank stains that are out there, that tell people that they need to have their jobs threatened because they don't understand how we don't have drift. We're conserving momentum. What's that? Conserving momentum in a trajectory of something that's only got an apparent deflection. It's only appearing to drift because I'm turning beneath it, but you want to tell us how it's conserving momentum? No, it's not conserving jack. It's only appearing to drift because we're claimed to turn beneath it. The fact that it doesn't drift doesn't mean it's conserving things. It means it doesn't drift, and it needs to prove we spin on an Earth that's turning beneath it. So you crackhead idiots that seem to think you can have people's jobs because of conservation momentum, flying in the face of a claim that we have drift, Neil deGrasse Tyson is going to be our citation for the globe claim. You have drift on a globe because you turn beneath things not attached. Can only be observed as we are spinning beneath things. What's that? You say we don't observe it because it conserves momentum? All right, so it doesn't demonstrate proof of spin then. Have his job, right? No, accept your pain. Accept your fight against the fact we don't have 15 degrees of drift observable on a turning Earth. Yeah, that's the reality, fundies. Lap it up. Shout out to Godzilla37, who says, this is not €6.99, or this is not €6.99, if you can think of it as €6.99. But it is $6.99. I don't understand your super chat.
He's talking about you can think of it as real money, or you can think of it not. I think that's what he's getting to.
Oh, it's not euros, it's dollars. I see. Thank you very much for the super chat, Godzilla. Really appreciate the support. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
None whatsoever. Beautiful light in the sky.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Well, not without R.
Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Hey, I was gonna answer it.
Which one?
The molten iron core.
Oh, feel free.
Did they at what depth do they even claim it's the molten part supposed to start? And did they ever get there to confirm it in any way? That's my question.
Well,
Only
They
if the
got-
core is about 6 miles deep, because they only got about 7 and change. So just a bit off.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
I think he's asking in the paradigm, if you've got a 3959 radius, that's to the exact centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. From that centre point at 3959, how far out is the molten iron core? I think is what Arwen's asking. It isn't. It's just the model. They just made it up. But Arwen wants to know the rhetoric, right, Arwen?
Well, I remember this movie where they had this giant tungsten drill machine with people in it, and they kept digging down and down and down and incredibly far down, and then threw into the lava, and then
'Cause they had to
eventually dug
restart
into
the
this
core,
giant
bro.
crystal cave or something, right? So, what did they
Didn't they-
base that on?
Didn't they have to restart the core or something like that?
Sorry, is this
Something-
is this
wasn't
an
there
explanation
something like
or
that?
are you pitching a movie plot? What's going on? Another shout out to Godzilla37. He says, that's 10th. Yeah, it was a typo. Should have been, but you can. My bad. You didn't have to super chat to say that, Godzilla, but thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
And how did they restart the core, Chocolate?
I don't know. Just remembering a bad movie.
It
I
was
know,
a
but-
nuke.
but-
Well, what else? What else would they do?
Thank you. Thank you. Isn't that the same thing Bruce Willis used on something else?
Yes, it's always nukes that are the solution.
Bruce
Oh,
Willis went
no.
the other way. He went to the second law of thermodynamics violation with drills to drill rocks.
And blow up a core. He wasn't restarting a core. He was blowing it up from the inside. He made the ultimate sacrifice in Narnia. God, don't you know your movies?
Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
Wouldn't a chemical reaction be a better thing for their core?
Chemical reaction. I don't know. They can make up any story they
Water
like.
core.
What core?
What chemical reaction at that heat?
What heat?
Well,
Bring
if it's
a
molten
match.
iron, it's gonna be pretty hot, right?
What molten iron?
The one claimed to be there.
Thank you. Finally. Claimed. Well, if it was there and it was starting at 3959, we'd have Earth curve. But Black Swan took care of that.
Actually, the Earth curve not being there took care of the Earth curve not being there.
That's true.
And doesn't their molten lava have to travel through thousands of miles of cooling substance to
No.
get to the surface
No.
in their
that's a
model?
No, that's a misconception. The plate tectonic activity at the Ring of Fire is what's causing those volcanic eruptions and the molten lava. It's the plate friction. I don't know if that's true. That's why I'm sort of hesitant about saying it. That's just the rhetoric, right? I'm just telling you what the rhetoric is. It's not coming up from the molten iron core. No.
You have plates on a ball.
So it's like high pressure pockets.
Yeah, just below the tectonic activity, though. It's not like it's claimed to be coming from massive pipes down at the core all the way up to the surface. Far from it.
You can have,
How do you have land moving all over the place when it's still attached to the land?
Well,
It happens really,
I'm
really,
just
really
curious-
slowly.
Oh, is that how?
Yeah.
Just so slow that you don't notice it? Is
Do
that,
you want a Pangea story or what? Is that what you're fishing for?
that's what I'm making fun of, yeah. So if you want to go into that.
Not
I
at
have
all.
another question.
They're
about-
just so
about
stories.
the-
Jackanory time. If you want to be Jackanory Chocolate, you be my guest.
Arma's trying to get in a word here.
We've
Can
got
I?
stories to
I
tell.
had a question.
Got very important stories to make up about Pangea and plate tectonics and all sorts of stuff. I mean,
Yeah, I had a question about plate tectonics, right?
Go ahead, man.
It's claimed that, as you said, the lava doesn't come from the molten iron core slipping through. No, it's supposed to be like the friction and the pressure of these plates to create molten lava. So, have they ever demonstrated that just pressure and friction could create lava in any form? Has that ever been demonstrated in some kind of a physical process?
I don't know.
That just pressure,
Rub-
just friction could do that?
Rub your hands real fast. You feel heat. So that's what they're going to say.
Do that
Yeah,
for
but is it enough heat to actually turn stone into lava?
Yeah,
That's
man.
my question.
Superman changed coal into a diamond, so yes.
Yeah, but he has laser eyes, so.
Nah, he did it with just his fists, man. Didn't involve lasers.
Oh, what? Right.
They have friction welding. I've seen that. That's a thing.
So if friction
Friction
welding, then
welding,
lava.
what?
Perfect logic.
Really? Friction weld? How does that work?
They also have arc welding, so there's your curve.
Yeah, but that's electric.
Nice 110.
Thank you.
Arwin's too into the actual discussion. Yes, look, the validity of what is being claimed here isn't really open for discussion. There is no validity because they haven't dug below about 12 kilometres. So, no. How they describe it at hundreds of kilometres down is farcical beyond reason because they haven't got any evidence for it as far as I can ascertain. Now, we're just discussing what they claim in terms of the molten iron core at the moment, and we just want to I want to just focus on the fact that regardless of what is the cause of volcanoes, I don't know the answer to that, and maybe they do. Yeah, maybe that is correct. I don't know. I'm not going to poo-poo it as not being correct. I don't know. But I do know that even their rhetoric doesn't have the lava coming from the core. That's it. That's all I want focused on. Beyond that, I don't know the rest of their rhetoric. It's pretty critical. It's part of the nature of reality. But who's going to go out and survey it? Who's going to be the one that figures out how volcanoes work beyond what they already tell us?
Right. I'm just kind of puzzled that supposedly pressure would cause rock to melt like that. When we know that, okay, there are super high pressure chambers and all that, specifically for industrial applications to make certain type of crystals or even diamond through sediment and bacterial stuff, right? So you can make a piece of carbon potentially into a diamond with extreme pressure. But how does that work with metal? And does it melt under extreme pressure? All of these things are just puzzling to me.
Quite
Like,
right. But what's more fascinating to me is what we can actually observe. We can see that we live on what seems to be a living Earth. The ground itself is reproducing. Yeah? You can see in Hawaii pillow lava literally creating land before your very eyes. So they talk about these very long processes that we have and millions of years in terms of the development of the land and all of this sort of stuff. I think it's all nonsense. I think the processes are actually, in some instances, incredibly rapid, where we've been led to believe that they take a substantial period of time. Mainly because that's what we actually observe. We actually see it. And when we do, we don't necessarily focus on the contradictions of what they've told us about how the land has been developed or split apart or plate activity. And then you just see land coming out of the ground, forming, and then being very fertile. And you're like, oh, I see. So the ground's alive in some respects, metaphorically or otherwise.
And
Nothing
you
to
tell me
see here.
Earth's not a phenomenon.
It is a phenomenon. Something's happening. You could science that. Shout out to Mike
Yeah, when I said it the other
808.
day, you said it no.
Hold on. He's just sent me a man yawning and waving, I think. Thank you very much for the super sticker, Mike 808.
I think that's a
That's what I
lemon
meant.
man.
That's what I meant the other day when I was asking: isn't Earth itself a phenomenon?
No, Earth itself is a concrete noun. If you just look at the ground, that's just that's as opposed to the ground coming out and being produced in the form of pillow lava. That's something actually happening, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, I always like to think of the tree. Tree, concrete noun. Leaves falling off the tree, a phenomenon that you can study. Moving on. Do we get any evidence of R? I live in hope.
R got beat up already so many times.
In R, they used to trust. Rest in peace.
And although Arwin sort of cut it off, did we get distance to the sun covered? Anybody? Anybody at all?
I don't see it right now.
Assume radius. Assume another radius of light in sky. And assume. Just keep assuming. Just assume and assume and assume. There you go.
You know what I think really is universally weird is that when things are very misty and everything, and there's just clouds everywhere especially in the summertime. But still, I just cannot pinpoint where the daylight now is coming from. There's supposed to be a sun somewhere up there behind it, yet everything is lit up, and I don't get
Because
that.
it's over here.
Yeah, but you should still, in between all of that, just see that on one side it should be lighter, because that's where this massive light source is, right? I don't understand like how things can lit up so universally without any kind of gradient in the light when it's that clouded during the day. I don't understand this.
It's diffusing the light. The clouds are acting as a diffuser. So if you Google search camera light reflector, it'll show you a piece of like white, like a disc. Sometimes they put them on the front of a softbox. You know, when you see those big umbrella looking things on a set. Well, that's a diffuser. The light is scattered more evenly. So that's why.
But how does it diffuse so evenly, like throughout the entire visible dome of the sky? As
I
it
love
were,
it. I give
visually?
him the phenomenon if you like, and he immediately asks me for the cause of the effect. How the hell should I know?
Right. But that was my question. I'm
No,
just hoping maybe somebody could shed some light on this, pun
No,
intended.
you're asking why it didn't appear as a gradiated light in terms of having it fade out to black or whatever. Well, that's because it's very diffuse. That's all it is. But why is it diffusing? Oh, okay. Diffusion is an entropic effect. So here we go. Ask me for the cause again. Let's see how quickly you can put me on the spot and admit I don't know.
I
don't.
I think I could
All right.
help I could help Arwen. This question will be looming for quite a while.
Oh my god.
No, only things in relation to the horizon looms. So,
And you missed the greatest pun of all right there.
no, I
He's into it.
misunderstood it on purpose.
Owen missing the pun
I
is
think
more.
you did.
Owen missing the pun is almost as funny as the pun most of the time, though.
Thank you.
No, I think it was a counter pun actually. I think Arwen did get the pun, but he made a reverse pun with the same word but different word.
Right, but
Very
but still,
very
my
bright of him. Very bright of him to do so.
Okay, look, there's many
Very
my
complexities.
question still stands.
Many
though.
complexities to this pun, but we are going to move on with housekeeping and ask any scientific evidence of gravity.
Ooh.
What's that?
Anyone in Discord? What's gravity?
Wait,
Help us out.
I think I know. I think I know what gravity is. It's that thing that's supposed to be negated after you reach a certain height, right? And then they said, "Oh, look, the rocket's stopping now, so that means they're now going to unbuckle and experience 0G and float around," even though they didn't show any of that live until they descended again.
They're not just performing a parabolic maneuver like the vomit comet when they do that. Is that not all
Yeah,
they
that's
do?
all it was.
I
It's
mean,
just a
Yeah,
big
but they
parabolic.
said that the floatiness would.
They didn't
Hold on,
show
hold
that
on.
live?
No,
Or
yeah.
quote unquote live?
hold
No,
on.
no, hold on. Let me put it down, please, in a detail, right? So they claimed, because I saw it live, like I saw the show on the channel. They said no, they're going to unbuckle as soon as the rocket stops, but that was still in the upward trajectory, right? And I thought, wait, that's not how that works.
Oh
And
yes,
they didn't show it. They didn't. They just said they were doing it, and they didn't show them unbuckling
Hold on.
when they were still going upwards.
Angel
I thought
HD.
that stood out to me.
Thank you. Angel HD, did you want to add something?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I had my mic open and I really apologize.
No, it's okay. I just didn't want to miss it if you wanted to add
It's my
something.
first time. It's my first time here, so that's why I was trying to
Like-
figure it out how it works.
It's okay. Pleasure to have you. Okay, so just so if this is watched at a later date, we're currently talking about the Richard Branson. What's the name of it? Virgin Galactic. Am I correct in the title?
Yeah.
Virgin Galactic.
Yes.
So he's done I've forgotten what the term is for it, but it's something like a drop launch. They take a plane up to a certain altitude with a plane attached to its belly that can't do that particular function. Then they drop it going high speed and then carry on the rest of the journey to a higher altitude in this specially adapted plane. They've been doing this for a long time. They did it back in the 60s. To my knowledge, they went even higher in the 60s. Nevertheless, this is not new technology, and he's been talking about it for some time. A trip to very high altitude. Good for him. However, the claim that he's reached the edge of space or has reached space or any of those claims are nonsense. It doesn't make any difference to our debunking of the claim that the sky is a vacuum called outer space. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill that space. So any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container, then we'll talk about Branson and his space, in quotes, missions.
Well, according to some ballers, gravity is supposed to keep it in, but when you go up high, then that gravity ends and there's still gas there. So that always confused me. Seems kind of
See the
contradictory.
previous question where we asked what gravity was and there was no response to that?
Right.
I know.
Gravity is not overcoming entropy. So entropy law would dictate that the gas, which is moving at a high velocity, will just keep moving in that direction until it strikes another particle of gas or the walls of its container or anything else. And when it does, it will bounce off it with an elastic collision and just go in the opposite direction. So that's what gas does. So if we had a sky vacuum and available volume for the gas to fill, the gas would travel in that direction and keep going. Or to put it another way, we would never develop gas pressure in the first place. Just for those of you who say, well, how come we've got a gas pressure gradient? Well, a gas pressure gradient being a delta of gas pressure which we'd never achieve in the first place if the sky was a vacuum. It would just be an availability of volume for the gas to fill, and it would have filled it already. Ergo, the sky vacuum isn't real, regardless of Branson's high-altitude flights. Matters not to the debunking and second law of thermodynamics violation that is a sky vacuum.
I have a question about gas behavior.
Sure, go ahead.
I went home to visit my family, and my brother was talking about how they had to install carbon monoxide detectors in my parents' cottage, and he was saying that it should be on the bottom. And then he said saying that, and I thought I was pretty versed because I visit you guys so often and I wanted to make sure I was right. He said that in a container, if you introduce two separate gases, like one that's heavier than the other, that they will separate, and the heavier gas will sit on the bottom and the lighter at the top. And I was pretty sure I was right, but I was saying no, they'll mix because of the entropy. But I wanted to check in with you guys and see if that's correct.
No, that is correct. So you can take a more extreme example, which they use with a man-made gas called sulfur hexafluoride, and they pump it into a fish tank and show that it would sink to the bottom because it's an inert gas, i.e. they say, quote-unquote, heavy gas, right? Well, it doesn't change the fact that if you came out an hour later after they've done the demonstration and floated the tinfoil boat on the gas, there's gaps between those gases. And the entropy, the proportionality of the time it will take for that gas to diffuse into the available volume that it has, is directly proportional to the amount of time. So over time, for 2 or 3 minutes you can get a very heavy, in quotes, gas to be in a fish tank for you to float something on it. But over time, with entropy being the thing that's going to increase over that period, the gas will just diffuse into the available volume. It'll fill the available volume. It'll diffuse. That's what gas does, because it's not bonded. So there's no barrier to stop any gas around it entering between the gaps. And that's precisely what happens over time. Now, you can delay that process of entropy. You can slow it down, but it's always going to be moving in one direction. So you can make a more extreme example. You can put butane in a very long pipe and then have a very small hole at the top of it and say, look, there's still butane in there at pressure. You go, yeah. And tomorrow there won't be, because over time, instead of hitting the walls and then hitting a gas particle and then bouncing down the pipe, some of the particles at the top bounce off the pipe and then go through the hole. And the more time that elapses, the more goes through the hole. That's entropy.
Awesome, thanks.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics.
strictly in the scientific terms? No.
Not yet. I think they never will, though, because as soon as they actually abide by the scientific method even once, then suddenly they have that thing staring at them in their past. Like, yeah, we did it once. That means that we could do it again. So I think they'd like to avoid it at all costs. So they just can keep up their just so story system.
It's funny though, the people who make all their money developing their fantasies in that place say they don't have any idea what the scientific method is, or uses it, or understands it. It's leaps of logic, guesswork, seat of the pants. And these are the people that get paid to tell us what's going on in there. Yeah. Great, isn't it?
Where can I find the best definition for the scientific method to show someone?
I don't know. I don't have any. I very rarely cite anything. Anybody got a citation for him? I don't have one. Clearly not.
Yeah, I could dig
Yeah,
one
because
up.
I was arguing with
It would
Hold
take
on.
I
me
was
a
arguing
few,
with my
but
family
Hold on,
about
hold on,
that too.
hold on. You're getting a response. Go ahead, Chocolate.
no, I could dig some up for you. Can't name them offhand.
Yeah,
but
that'd be
yeah.
awesome. That'd be awesome. Like one that like normies would like be like, oh, that's a good source, you know? Because if I just did Wikipedia,
I'm going to give you.
Yeah, I got you.
Well,
What?
just while you're posting that to him, the scientific method elucidates the cause of a natural phenomena by way of systematic, hypothesis-based experimentation. End quote, Nathan Oakley, 2021. That's my definition.
that's a good one.
I'll break that down. Elucidation. That would be to bring light to the cause, what causes something, of a natural phenomena, something occurring, an event, thank you very much from the chat, Paula, that occurs in nature. So the cause of an effect, that's what the scientific method deals with. It does so by way of systematic, that means repeated, hypothesis-based, that would be to establish the cause, that's your independent variable, of the effect, naturally occurring phenomena, and the null, the cause you assume, and the antithesis of your prediction that it will cause it. That is to say, it won't cause it. That's your null hypothesis. So based on that, you perform systematic experimentation to validate either the null or the alternative, one of which will be, write this down, fundies, proven. The sole purpose is to prove the hypothesis, and upon experimentation, you prove the null or prove the alternative. One or other will be proven. They are mutually exclusive. They cannot both be simultaneously true. A cannot cause B and A cannot not cause B. You can't have it both ways. It can't simultaneously be true that something causes something and doesn't cause something. Hence, one or other is proven. That's the method of science. It's empirical because of the null. One or other's proven. You can invalidate one or other and will invalidate one or the other upon experimentation with a valid hypothesis. Hope that helps.
It does, and it's interesting because I visited my family, and some of my family wouldn't visit me. Like I went back home, and my family lives on a Great Lake. They live on Lake Erie. I don't know if you know about the Great Lakes, but like it's basically an ocean of fresh water. Anyways, certain members of my family, they wouldn't visit me because I hadn't had a certain something injected into me. And then my mom was like saying, well, what is the science behind this? Like, why can't they visit you? And I was trying to tell them, this isn't science. What you're talking about, that's not science. And I was trying to go over that. And and my dad, he works for a pharmaceutical company. He's like, tell me it is science. And I'm like, no, this is what science is. I basically said exactly what you said. And I wanted to cite what science is to him, and it just caused a big problem. Like my family wouldn't visit me. my family lives on a lake. It's clearly flat. They live on Lake Erie. You can look from left to right, and another thing I think about is why, if it's curved, I can see like from left to right. You can see hundreds of miles left to right. So there should be a curve left to right. There's none.
Careful. Very good until you said should be a curve. Why should there be? Because they say there should be a physical geometric sphere edge horizon that bends. No, there shouldn't be. We shouldn't expect to see curve, and when we're not seeing it, it's not that we were expecting to and haven't. We just see things with our eyes, and we do have a horizon. Meanwhile, they have a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon, which only exists in their maths. That doesn't mean that we should be expecting to see the maths-only based horizon that they see. That's their problem. And I'm going to bang this drum as much as I can, flat earthers. We don't see, quote, too far. Yeah, that's nonsense. We just see what we see. There's no reason to make apologies for seeing what you see in a camera. It's not too far. You're just stuck in a paradigm you're still struggling to relinquish if you say that. Too far? No. The globe model says there should be a physical geometric sphere edge horizon. So what? Does it mean that when it's not there, you've seen too far? No, it just means that their assertions are wrong. What you see is merely what you see, has sod all to do with what the globe model says you should see. So, is there any more? Does anyone want to cover the Richard Branson thing anymore, or have we basically covered that? Because we were very brief, mainly because we can rip it to pieces with about 3 sentences.
I'll share something on that. There was the ceremony afterwards with that astronaut pinning a little pin that looked like the actual Virgin Galactic ship that they were on, that was launched at high altitude, on each of the people up there. And at the end, he would say their name, and then he'd say astronaut, Richard Branson, astronaut, and then that lady, astronaut. And this is an astronaut pinning this pin on their flight jacket. Such a show. The crowd, the champagne, the spraying of the champagne. All it was a high altitude flight. I mean, the people who fall for this is amazing. When you
was that
see,
a pun? Fall for this? As they're in a parabolic maneuver?
well, good one. I wasn't saying it for that, but thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's just like watching those high fives and jumping around when they do a cameo shot of the people at Mission Control on some of these other so-called rocket launches. I mean, it's so phony. It's a bunch of young people who are just paid to be gleeful and excited. They have no idea what they're talking about.
But it is exciting. I just want to disagree with you a little bit. And that is to say that when Dilly Gill, I'll shout this channel out first, Dilly Gill, DILLYGILL, 2 words, go and subscribe today for his dissection of space travel and NASA and all their phony baloney footage that they put out, labelled as, quote, crapovision by Dilly Gill. So check him out. He's one of my favourite YouTubers, actually, Dilly Gill. Should shout him out a lot more than I do. Anyway, he pulls apart their fake footage that's done behind green screens, done on trapeze, high wire, and shows the fakery and how it's done. But he also takes apart some of the older footage where they do parabolic manoeuvres and are capable of seeming to be in what they call 0G. I don't know if we'll cover whether or not 0G is actually a bastardization of the 1G versus 0G when you're falling, but we won't cover that now. The point is that when those particular quote-unquote astronauts were interviewed about their experiences in quote-unquote space, they were a lot more enthusiastic about their delivery, about the experience, about what space was when they'd been on the Vomit Comet. Now, Dilly Gill is he puts a very convincing argument, actually, that the shuttle is actually just another Vomit Comet. And it's designed the way it is because it's a much more efficient Vomit Comet. You can do it at a lower angle and get longer times of slightly less looking 0G, sort of half G or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, they can pull it off for longer in that particular vehicle. And it makes sense. It's certainly something that send up and bring down. So why wouldn't they be doing those shots in there? He makes a very good case for it. That aside, their discussions with the press and the discussions with the ground control and all those sorts of things were far more enthusiastic when they'd experienced a parabolic maneuver and weightlessness, effectively, because from their reference point, as they're falling through the sky and the thing around them's falling with them, they're feeling like they're floating on air, right? They're actually descending at a rapid rate along with the thing around them, but that's not how it seemed when you don't have any windows to reference, right? I'm sure if you did have windows, it would be absolutely terrifying. But there we go, that's a different issue as well. Now, I get to my point finally after that long preamble. When you send a member of the public who's paying up for an experience of space, what do they want to see? They want to see the horizon, because in their mind it's an Earth curve edge. They want to see the black sky, because in their mind it's a sky vacuum. And they want to float. Well, Branson can deliver all of those things. Wonderful.
And the zodiacal lights.
And there's a what?
The zodiacal lights. That's what they want to see up there, Nathan.
The what light?
Have you watched that Don Pettit video?
No, I don't watch any of this stuff. That's why I don't know what you're talking about. You'll have to break it down to me.
No, it's just a funny clip. I think I'll find it and send it off to you.
Okay. But yeah, they're being sold on an idea that they already know from past experience when doing it with the astronauts. Got a very, very positive reaction from them. Instead of looking like they've just found a turd in their cornflakes, like the return from the moon landing guys. Neil Armstrong is a bloody morose while he's talking about it. Looks like he's just experienced a death in the family. Then you cut to the ones that experienced a bit of weightlessness in a parabolic maneuver, and, they've been throwing bits of food around and actually floating. They're far more keen and enthusiastic to talk about how wonderful space is after just doing a parabolic maneuver. Now, don't get me wrong, the public are led to believe that they're doing those things out in space, whilst begging the question of an orbit falling around a sphere Earth. But it doesn't matter. Ultimately speaking, they came back with much more positive details of what they were doing. Now, in terms of the public perception, I think it's been managed beautifully by Branson. Now he's actually done it, which is to say that he's sent them up, given them an experience. He hasn't really hidden it. He was always very, from memory, it's quite a long time ago when he first brought this out, probably in the 90s. I can't remember. Anyway, he was quite clear that you're just going to go up quite high and come back down again, like an elevator. And at the time, before I was a flat earther, I was like, that's a bit crap, isn't it? But nevertheless, good for you. I'm sure you'll make your millions with people paying for it. Now he's actually doing it. People will pay for it. And they will perceive an Earth curve edge horizon that they've got a reification fallacy of. They will experience a black sky that they'll automatically reify into a sky vacuum. And they will float in a plane that's descending at a given rate in a parabolic maneuver. I mean, that's win-win for them. I think this is an absolutely marvellous bit of brainwashing. Because all the public members of the public that can say, I've been to space, and in the back of their mind they know they've only been to the edge of space according to Branson, but that doesn't matter, right? Edge of space is good enough. And that's what they'll punt out there. Just brainwashes everyone that little bit more. I think it's genius. From the globe side, I'm admiration for the heliocentric deception and always have been, and this is just another arm of it.
I'm coming from a different viewpoint. When I saw NASA at its beginning in the 60s, it was guys with glasses on, pocket protectors with 3 pins, white shirt, black tie. I mean, just in front of some archaic computer screen. And it was some sense of like, this is engineering at its highest feat. Today, if you just go look at any one of these things, whether it's SpaceX or this one, the interviewers and the people are like in their 20s, they're googly-eyed. I'm observing all the
It
other
looks like a Nickelodeon show.
Exactly. Oh, thank you, Chocolate. That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
I know. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like, this is supposed to be serious?
Other
This is supposed to be
people
like
starting
this,
to get
this
annoyed.
fantastic industry? The industry that goes backwards in technology. This is the same one? Off topic real quick, I wanted to mention, because I was listening to, not to bring up politics, but I was listening to Donald Trump Jr. Talking at the CPAC the other day, right? And just real flippantly during his little speech, he said something that struck my ears. He started talking about, I think, Florida something, and how far he could see at one point. And he said, it's Florida. It's flat. There's like, 6 inches of elevation change within like a 20-mile area. Said that real flippantly, just, kept moving on, didn't focus on it. And I just thought, I was like, oh, yeah? It's a bit of a problem, isn't it, though? If you got 6 inches of elevation change in 20-mile area, where's the 8 inch per mile square, bud? What's going on?
I'm going to do a proper shout out for Dilly Gill, as somebody in the chat was like, is it Dilly Gilly? No, it's not. It's Dilly, D-I-L-L-Y, G-I-L-L, 2 words. Go and subscribe today. His videos are amazing. They're like a real highlight of my day when he releases them, and I tell him so. So I'll immediately sit and watch through the entire thing, probably twice, to pick up on all the various different things that he's putting down. But yeah, go and check him out. I've just put a link in the live stream chat. So if you're watching this after the fact, just open up the live stream chat and you'll see the link to Dilly Gill's channel going by. And the video that I've spammed, or haven't spammed, I've just put one link, but I will spam it, is NASA's Most Beloved Fraud. And it's just part 3 of that particular video series. But he's got others like the shuttle is a zero-G plane and various other different aspects that he covers. But he's quite dry, British guy. But I find him very, very funny. So, I don't know, it's regardless of his humour, which is totally irrelevant, his subject matter is right on point. He does a lot of research. Yeah, very, very good YouTuber. So check him out. That's Dilly Gill, D-I-L-L-Y-G-I-L-L. Subscribe today.
On the back of Chocolate statement, remember Chocolate? A long time ago, they would use the state of Kansas and how flat the state of Kansas was.
Yeah.
I think it was like 400 miles of just pancake.
But funny thing was, he was comparing it to Texas, because I think he was in Texas in that speech. And he was comparing it to when he's been in Florida. And he's like, oh, Florida, it's flat like Florida, it's like there's 6 inches of elevation within 20 miles. And then just kept blah, 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 moving on. And obviously, I heard that. I'm like, that's a hell of a statement. Somebody who probably doesn't believe you live in a flat, stationary Earth. But anyway, it's crazy how they just throw that in. They don't even know. It's like the guy reminds me of the cab driver who was just like, oh man, the water was so flat, beautiful. Yeah, it's because it's flat. No, it's not flat. It's that type of thing. I love it.
Well, I was talking to a few people this weekend, and I said to this one guy, I said, you do know we live in some sort of a matrix, right? And he goes, yeah. And I go, what do you think I meant by that? And a long pause. And then he says, well, basically, you're saying that we've been lied to about things. And I said, yeah, exactly. And I left it there at that moment, but I'll see him again.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta drop that seed.
Sleeping Warrior's got a similar story about being at the Isle of Man, where he's speaking to one of the locals about seeing the Isle of Man. And after the guy's given a very lengthy explanation of seeing it and how flat it is between there and here, etc., Anthony Riley, Sleeping Warrior, drops it on him. It's like, well, you realise that's because it's flat, right? And he gets a similar reaction. Right, no, obviously that's the curve of the Earth and that. It's like, you just told me how flat it is.
That's the thing, right? You let them talk for a few minutes. You don't tell them immediately. You let them. I let the cab driver go for like, it must have been 10 minutes. Like, he was very talkative. I'm not usually a talker like that when I'm in cabs and stuff, but he wanted to go, and apparently he wanted to share his story with me. So he told me how beautiful this lake was. The water was flat. You could see forever. His words. You could see forever. The flat. Oh my God, it's so flat. Water, beautiful. That's because it's flat. No. It's not that. It's
Flat forever, but it's not flat forever.
Until you heard it's flat from somebody else.
But that's his pain.
No, it's not flat.
I mean, what you're describing there is the essence of cognitive dissonance, isn't it? That is cognitive dissonance right there. It's flat. It's really flat. You can see forever. The water was so flat and level. Yeah, but that's because it's flat. No, it's not. It's curved.
Exactly. That is cognitive pain right there. Yeah. What's sad was the way he was talking. Is I knew me saying that would do that to him. I knew I was gonna get that reaction, but I did it anyway because I
Why
had
not?
to.
What the hell? It's only a cabbie. Sorry, Mr. Uber driver. You've had your day ruined. You've been sent into a very heavy dose of cognitive dissonance. Now I'm going to leave you be. Bye bye.
That's the first time the guy in the back seat drove him crazy.
But this is the thing, isn't it? The Earth is obviously and observably and measurably flat. It's navigated flat, built on flat, appears to be flat, and your cabbie driver is telling you how flat it is. So it's not a stretch when you say it's flat, other than you've been programmed to believe that it isn't what you actually observe. Now, when it comes to actually measuring it, and we debunk the very tools they use to assert it, in circumstances that most general members of the public wouldn't understand at first brush. They just wouldn't get it if you shoved an earth curve maths calculator in front of them. I didn't get it. And I'm not saying, oh, well, everyone's dumb and therefore, because I didn't get it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you've got to figure out what it's actually doing first, right? And if you don't know, you don't know. You're just like, what's this? Earth curve maths? Do you immediately go, well, because it says earth curve maths, they're obviously begging the question with an R value and taking tangent points to a geometric horizon and calculating dip angles with feet and inches values that don't change. You don't know any of that stuff when you first come across it.
Well,
But there's levels to this shit, right? That's when, at that point, when you start realizing, oh, we see too far compared to what I'm told, compared to this model, compared to this math. That's when I think that's, it's sort of okay. But then when you realize that, no, that's just the model, that's not the actual reality we live in, then it's like, no, we don't see too far. We just see as far as we can on that particular day at that particular time.
I was going to say, the programming is interesting because as they grow up through the school system, they're programmed with the heliocentric model. And then like in Chocolate Story and Anthony's Story, all of a sudden you make a little dent in that programming and they get very defensive because it's like, wait a minute, that's not what I was told all my life. This is what it is. Yeah, but didn't I just say it was all flat? I could see forever. Now, how could that be? And so that cognitive dissonance kicks in, but it's like a person who has the ability to think for themselves to this point hasn't. And then when you bring up a little scenario like that, it's the first time they have to choose. Like, wait a minute, I did just say it's all flat. But then at the same time, it's got to be curved. Oh, my head hurts.
Indeed. Just a quick shout out to Retro Bill. He says, FTFE shouted out Nathan and Sleeping Warrior in his latest debate on Modern Day Debate Channel. Bless his cotton socks. Isn't that kind of him? How appreciative I am of any advert from anybody ever. Thank you very much, Craig, for the advert. With that, and thanks to Retro Bill more importantly for the super chat, but with that I will say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!